Hello and welcome back. Code with SDM here. Welcome to the video number 2 of the complete Livewire 4 series. In the last video, we installed Livewire 4 and we built our first component. If you haven't watched the video yet, the link is right up here. So just go and check it. So today we are diving deep into one of the Livewire 4 biggest features, which is we're going to discuss about the components. So we're going to go dive deep on the components. So we're going to discuss the things like single page or single file components, multi-file components, the class-based components, and we are going to see on how you can create their properties, how you can do everything that you need to do in order for you to master up the Livewire 4 components in general. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so before we start to discuss about what we are supposed to discuss today, so if you are new to the channel, consider to subscribe, like the video, share with your friends, and that's a way that you're supporting the channel. So this is my channel. If you are new and you don't know what I'm doing, so you can just go through this page, which is my YouTube channel, so you can be able to see all the videos that I've already published, and then you can be able to be in a good position for you either to subscribe or do what you think is the right thing. But also it's a good thing for you to write up the comment if you find anything that is not the right thing. Let's say you have a suggestion, what you do want me to see building on this year of 2026, which is actually, I believe, will be a good year on here on our channel. So without further ado, let's dive here on the thing that we need to discuss. So basically, the page of Quick Start, we've already covered it because that was the first video I remember. So we just created the counter application, which is different from what you see here, basically, but that is what we did. So we created the counter application, which covers all of these. So how you can create the component properties. We've seen on how we can create the counter property, that we already done that in the previous video. And then we've seen on how you can create the component methods, and we've seen on how you can create the increment and the decrement methods, which were supposed to be called on the blade file, right? Then we've seen one of the directive, which was wire, then click, which was just for checking the event that the button was clicked or not. And when it was clicked, it was calling the method that we defined for incrementing and decrementing. So that was the thing that we did on the previous video. So without wasting any time, here there is a section which discusses about the installation, which you have already seen on how you can install the Livewire version 4 in your Laravel application. But here there is more things that you can be able to do. And I want to discuss this a little bit briefly so that we can be able to be aware of what is discussed here, so that when you go through this documentation yourself, you should not be able to wait more time on this. So basically, these are just like configurations when you do the installation of Livewire 4 in your Laravel application. And then when we're done with this one, the upgrade guide, this I'll create a dedicated video on that, on how you can be able to upgrade from Livewire version 3 to Livewire version 4. So also I'm going to discuss briefly about the UI component, which is actually Flux, because Flux, this also is another product of the Livewire creator, which is who is basically Caleb. So he created this Flux just for basically for helping you to use the styled components in your Livewire applications. So I'm just going to give you simple explanations and what you can do, and then after that, I'm not going to dive deep on that Flux thing, okay? So after we're done with the installation part, then is when we can start to discuss about the components. So on the installation section, here we are going to discuss about what you need to do or what you are supposed to do for setting up your new Laravel application so that it can work well with the Livewire application within. All right. So we've seen before that in order for you to be able to use the Livewire version 4, you need to have the following prerequisites, which is Laravel version 10 or later, also the PHP version 8.1 or later. And this was the command that we used to create the, to install Livewire. And then after that, when you are ready to create your first component, so the quick start guide is what we have seen here before, which was the one that we used to create the first component. Then we have seen on how you can create a layout file, because the layout file is required for full page components, because they will require them to have the slot which is coming from the layout, which is this slot is where all the components are being rendered from, right? So that was the command to create the layout of your application, and it is stored in this directory here. And then here there is a way to publish the configuration file of your Livewire application, and this is important because as I've said before, for example, if you don't want to let's say to see this thing here, you see, so this emoji here of electrobolt, so if you don't want to see this, so you can be able to disable it from the configuration file, and you can only see the configuration file by running this command right here. So let's just run that in our terminal. So here is our terminal. Let me clear it, and then let's paste the command. Then after that, let's run it. Right, so here you can see it has published the configuration file. So now let's see what we have here. So basically, when you now visit the application, you should be able to see on configuration now we have a new file which is called the livewire.php. So if I open this file now, so this is what I have. So here you can see there is component locations that you can configure. So you can see the component location is stored here. So we have the views slash component, then we have views slash livewire, and we have the component namespaces, which is this one that we are going to use. We have the page, where the pages layout you will be able to create it. Then there is loading placeholder, and this one I'm going to show you later on how you can be able to configure this one. And then for the emoji, which I've already said before, so when you are creating the files, and for example you don't want to see this high voltage emoji or the bolt emoji, so you can just be able to disable it from here. So when you just put it to false, then this one the emoji should be gone on your files. But for now, I'll just leave it that way. But later on, I'll explain to you more on how even you can be able to do those stuffs. And here we have the class namespaces, where the classes, when you create the class-based component, so they are going to use this namespace on their files. Then the class path, it will be this one. We have the view path, temporary file uploads. So here is where the files will be uploaded temporarily, and then the render or redirect. So this is false by default, but you can be able to put it to true, and then it will just try to determine if the Livewire will run a component with the render method after a redirect, or vice versa of that thing. Then we have the model binding. So there is a couple of configurations here that you can be able to do. So that is what I was trying to explain here, and basically there is no other things that you need to change most of the time, because Livewire will work mostly of the time without you even changing anything out of the box. Okay, so if you want to do advanced configuration on your laravel, Livewire application. So here are the things that you can be able to do. So the following section covers advanced scenarios that most of the application won't need. Only configure this if you have a specific requirement. So that is the a disclaimer or a way that you should be able to know. Okay, so for example, when you need manually bundling Livewire and Alpine in your application, so that's when you are going to need to do these configurations. So basically, you need to add the Livewire script config directive in your layout file, which is this one. So you just need to add it from there, and then after that, this will inject the configuration and the runtime globals that Livewire needs, but without the actual Livewire and the Alpine JavaScript. Without Livewire and Alpine JavaScript, since you are bundling those yourself. Okay, so you can just be able to replace this one with this one. Okay, so after that, in your app.js, then you need to do the configuration like this one, and then when you do the rebuild, so remember to run the npm run build so that the asset will be bundled or will be rebuilded again. Okay, then you can be able to customize the Livewire update endpoint. So basically, when you do any request on your Livewire application, so all the requests are being sent to this path here, or this URL here, or endpoint that you see. But if you want to, let's say, to change it like to prefix it for localization and something like that, or for multi-tenants, so you can be able to do that by using this way. So just go to the app service provider, then just say use this Livewire class, and then set your update route to a certain custom Livewire update route, and that will be the thing that will help you to update this path. After that, you can also add a middleware to the update route, which means you can be able to say, for example, this will only apply for authenticated users. Only authenticated users can be able to send a request to the Livewire application, right? After that, you can be able also to customize the JavaScript asset URL. So basically, the Livewire JavaScript URL at the moment, it is using this Livewire, then /livewire.js. But if you want to customize it, so basically you can just be able to put the custom URL and then you set the script route, and then you should be able to do what you want. But also, there is a way of publishing the Livewire assets to the public directory. So when you need this, if you want to save Livewire JavaScript through your web server directory, means for example, you're using CDN distribution or specific caching strategies instead of Laravel routing, so you can just publish the Livewire JavaScript assets to your public directory. So just run this command, and then to ensure assets stay up to date when you update the Livewire, add this to your composer.json. So you just need to add this command so that when you just update the Livewire, so this one will be rerun again so that it can be published again. Okay, so in most of the application, this is just like a warning. So in most application, don't need this one. So publishing assets is rarely necessary. So only do this if you have specific architectural requirement that prevents Laravel from saving the assets dynamically. Okay. Also, we have a way of disabling automatic asset injection. So when you need this, if you want complete control over when and how Livewire assets are loaded, you can just disable automatic injection by updating this in your configuration file. So you just go to the configuration file that we have already seen here, and then you just go to the injection. So here, then you see now it is updated and it is set to true by default, but you can be able to set it to false if you want here. Okay, then when it disabled, you must manually include this one and this one into your layout, or Livewire won't function automatically. Okay, and the alternative, you can just force the asset injection on specific key pages. So you just need to run this one, and then when you call this one in your route or controller where you want, and the asset will be injected automatically. On troubleshooting, so here I'm just going to say this briefly because I don't want to dive on this section now. So for example, there is issues like Livewire JavaScript not loading, which return the 404 error. So you can just be able to see that this is the cause. So it can be caused by the engine configuration blocking the route. So you can be able to troubleshoot it by just checking this storage, and you can just be able to configure that correctly in your Nginx server, right? Also, there is another thing which is happening, like Alpine.js not available on pages without Livewire components. So if you want the Alpine.js on the page that doesn't have any Livewire component, so there is a way to do that, which has been explained here. So you just need to add the Livewire script and also the Livewire styles attribute or the directives like this way, and then Alpine.js will be available on those pages automatically. But also there is another error or problem that can happen. So component cannot be updating, or there is errors in the browser consoles. So if you find all of that, so you just need to ensure the following that are set as expected. So now we are done with the installation section. Now let's go direct to the component section on the essentials, and let's directly start to discuss about the components. So basically, the upgrade guide and the UI, I've said this one will have a completely separate video which will be dedicated for those two scenarios. So I'm going to discuss them in detail about how you can upgrade the Livewire 3 application to Livewire 4 without any problem. And for UI components, as I've mentioned, so that one I'll not discuss it much, but I'll show you the hints on what you need to have, what you can do with that, and then we can be done with the UI component of Flux. So without further ado, let's jump into the component, which is the main concept of our today's video. So components. In Livewire version 4, components are essentially the PHP classes with the properties and methods that can be called directly from a Blade template. So this powerful combination allows you to create a full stack interactive interfaces with a fraction of the effort and complexity of modern JavaScript alternatives that you can have. So in this guide, we are going to cover everything you need to know about creating, rendering, and organizing your Livewire components. You'll learn about the different components format available, as we have the single file, multi-file, and class-based components. Then we are going to learn on how you can pass data between the components, how to use the components as full pages. Then we are going to see the use cases of when to use which type of component. So that's what we are going to cover here. So in order for us to be able to understand what I'm trying to explain, I'll just go direct to the code. I'll close this configuration file, and then from here we need to create the counter application that we have already created before, but I remember we created that as a single file component because by default that is what you are going to create. So right now we have a single file application or component here, which is a counter application that we created on our first video. So we want to create other more type of component, so we are going to create a multi-file component of the same application, which is counter. Then we are going to create another application, component, which is for class-based component. So let's start with creating a multi-file component. So first of all, the first component that we are creating, which is default, is a single file component. That is what you should know, because that is what is explained here on the documentation. So when you run this command, just when you put the make livewire, then the name of the component, so basically the default will be the single file component. So on the single file component, as you remember, already we've implemented the configurations and all the logics for a counter to work. But what you can add here is to have an if condition. So you can have an if condition here to check if the count is, let's say, less than 0. You can just say less than or equal to 0. So that's when you should not be able to decrement. Or this you can just say if it's greater than 0. Okay, so you can just put it here. So that makes more sense. So for example, now instead of decrementing when it is let's say 0 to go to negative, so we can just prevent that by just having this condition here. Okay, so now this is our first single file component that we have created in our application. But you have noticed something here, because we have the anonymous class, which is class extend the component. So this is called the anonymous class. So our blade template below, it's inspired by the view or servlet, where their single file component are standard. So now here what's new, and honestly it's really cool, the multi-file component. So let's try to create the multi-file component and let's see how it looks like. So basically for you to be able to create a multi-file component, so you just need to go to your terminal, create, and then run php artisan, then make livewire. Then we have a flag that we add it by adding 2-, then you just need to say multi-file component, MFC. So when you add that flag, so automatically Livewire will understand that you are creating a component of type of multi-file type. So let's try to create that and let's see what's happening. So let's create. So what should the component be named? So that is the name, because we didn't pass here the name of the component, so that's why it has just asked us for the name. So let's call it, let's say, let me just call it Sage. For example, I just want to make it to be different, so let's call it Sage. And now you can see it has been created inside the views. Then we have the new file or directory called the Sage. So now if you go on the files, so let's go to the resources, views, then here you can see we have the components, and here on the components you can see we have the Sage, and on the Sage we have the blade file, which is this one. Also we have the sage.php file. So you can see from here we have 2 files that were added. So one was the blade file, the second one was the class, and this class is still using the anonymous classes as what we have on the single page or on the single file component. But also we have the search.blade.php, which is acting as a blade file but in a separate files. So it's like this first component, but just dispatched one on the separate file and the other one on the separate file. Okay, so this is what it means by creating a multi-file component. So here on the multi-file component, you can be able to create basically the other logic for searching. So for example, here on the class, we can be able to say, for example, we can have a public key property of type string, which can be called the query, which will be tracking the query that the user is trying to query. Then we have the public array type of result, which will store the results that you're going to get when running that query. Then we are going to have the public function updated query. So this is a lifecycle hook of our application. So this should be function. Okay, so when we are saying a lifecycle hook, means this one is going to be updating this property here, because when you have a property here and you want to track it when it is being updated, so if you want to track the real update on real-time updates, so this is the way that you're going to use. So there is a couple of lifecycle hook functions or hooks that I'm going to discuss with you on the next videos, and I'll show you each of them on how you can be able to utilize it in your application. So here, for example, is where the search logic will lie. Okay, so here it is done. So you see, still it is using the anonymous class here, like in single file, but now we have PHP which is separate from the blade file. So now let's open the search.blade.php file, and now let's put the following code. So here on the div, let me remove this text, and inside here let's put an input, and then on this input let's put the directive of wire model, then dot live. So this is used to add the live functionality on the query so that it can be reactive. Okay, so to make it when the user is searching, and it will be updating automatically without waiting for the user to, let's say, click enter or type anything else. So when you're just typing, so the Livewire will be sending the request to the server, and then it will come back with the results that you are looking for. Okay, then down here we need to have the list of results. So here we can just say, we can use the if, and then we say if we have the result, then inside here we are going to have an ordered list, and then from an ordered list we can do the for each loop. Okay, then we can look through the results, then here we can have result from results. Okay, and then here we are going to have the list here, which will be list. Then inside that list is where we're going to show the result that we were looking for. So that's all about the Blade template, and it is in its own file. So now, for example, we want to add the CSS for this component. So what you can do, you can just create it manually, because when you do the command here, we didn't tell it to add those two files, so which are optional, the CSS and also the JavaScript. So basically, so let's create the CSS file here. So let's create a new file, and then let's call it search.css, and which this CSS will be scoped only to this component. So let's add the following styling. So I'm just going to paste the following styling. So this is the style that we are going to use on our search. So this is styling the input, which is this one. Okay, and then we have this one for styling the unordered list, which is this one. Okay, then after that, you may also have the JavaScript for your component. So we can just create a JavaScript file here. So we can just say search.js. Okay, so inside this search.js, you can also be able to add the following JavaScript. Okay, so for example, when the search is updated, for example, you have just dispatched that event, and when you've dispatched it, so this can be used to listen to that event. So this is just a demo thing, because we don't dispatch any event, but also we didn't do any logic on the search component, so that will not work at all. But that's just a simple example of what you can be able to achieve with this multi-file component. So now, since we have everything that we need here, and when you do this JavaScript here, so the component will have this JavaScript as a component specific JavaScript. So basically means it will have the access to this, which means it will be scoped to the context of the current component that you are using. So this multi-file format is perfect for larger, more complex component where you want separation but you still want everything in one place. So your IDE loves it because each file is basically is in its proper type, better autocomplete, and better syntax highlighting. So basically everything will work just fine because the IDE automatically will work with you just as what you need. So we have seen on how you can create this one. So if you want to see it in action, you can just register the route here on web.php. So you can just add another route, then you can say Livewire, then you can call it search. Then here you can just say the name of the component, which is search, okay, which should be string, and then let me close it this way. Okay, so now if I go to my application and visit this search, so let's go back here to my application, and now instead of counter, now let's go to search, refresh. You see, so now we have this field here, which is already styled as what we did here. So for example, if you want to see if that styling is working, so you can just change something here. So for example, on the border color, instead of being that one, let's put it to be red. And then if I go back here, refresh, now you see the border is now red. So means the style will be only scoped to this page, because if you go back to the counter, you should be able to see now the counter still looks the same. Okay, so let's go back to the search, and this is the search. And when you do the search here, so basically Livewire will be sending the request to the server. So basically if you go to the network tab, and now if I try to type here, you see, so there is an update which you was sending to the server, and this is because here on the search.php we have this query as a public key property, but here on the blade file we have the model binding, but we have this live attribute. So this live means it will be sending the request whenever you change anything on this particular input. So means now everything works as we expected. Okay, so now finally we need to see another type of component, which is class-based component. So let's see on how you can create the class-based component. So basically we can just go back to the terminal, can clear it, and then we can say php @make livewire. Then you can put the name of the component that you want. So for example, you can say user profile, and then you can just put this flag, which is class. So when you put that one, means it is going to create a new component, but that component will be the class-based component. So let's click enter, and now you see we have the component that has been created, and you can be able to see that it has just created two things. So basically on the class-based component, it will create two files in separate location or separate directories. So the first directory will be on app, then Livewire, then the name of the component. So this will be the component, and this is the traditional way which was previously used by the developers that you have already worked with, the Livewire 2 and the Livewire 3. All of them were using this similar class-based component, and they are using namespaces, so means now you can be able to extend these components in a future use that you wanted to use. And also the second file that has been created by that command was here inside the resources. Then inside the resources there is views. Then let me collapse this one. Then we have a new directory called the Livewire. Then inside Livewire there is a blade file, which is this one. So if you have already used the Livewire version 3, so this was the default way of creating a Livewire component. So I believe you will be familiar with it. So now you've noticed the difference that the PHP class in the app slash Livewire and the view in the views then Livewire, they are completely different parts of your application. So now already we have seen the named class that I've already showed you here on the user profile, which is this one, which is a named property or the named class, which is different from this one, which was just an anonymous class, which is this one. Okay, then and in your blade file you can view this is a separate file, and this is what you are used to it if you have been using Livewire or if you prefer the traditional Laravel structure. Okay, so now I want to show you the difference between the three components very quickly, and then we can start to see the use cases of where you should use which type of component. So basically the main difference is that the single file and the multi file, all of them use the anonymous classes, but the difference between the two is that the single file component just use a single file and everything is on the same file. So you can see, for example, in this one, so we have the PHP class here, and then we have the blade file here. But on the multi-file component, that is different. So you have the component directory, then you have the directory for storing those components. So the component will be inside here. So this directory means if you create another multi-file component, it will create another directory which will be called based on the component that you named it. And then it is going to have the separate files like this one. So the file for PHP class, the file for blade file, the file for CSS, and the file for JavaScript. And all of that will be scoped to the context of the current working class or component. So that's fine, and that's done for these three. So basically when to use each of these file and their use cases. So here the big question, which format should you use? And let me give you my recommendation based on the component you are building. So when we are using the single file component, or when you want to create a single file based component, so the component should be small to medium in complexity. That's when you need to use the single file component. So think of models, drop down, simple forms, notification methods, and anything that may be 100 to 150 lines in total. So more than that, you may need to go to the multi-file component. Also, if you want maximum speed and simplicity, so single file is the fastest to create and the easiest to understand at a glance, perfect for rapid prototyping. Also, the component if doesn't need a separate CSS or JavaScript file, so you just need to use the single file component. And if your all styling is handled by Tailwind or CSS framework and you don't have a component specific JavaScript, so the single file is perfect for you. Also, another thing that you should consider to use the single file component is when you are working solo or on a small team. So less decision fatigue and less context switching will be the thing that you should consider when using the single file component. So now let's focus on the multi-file component use cases. So basically, when your component is large or complex, so if your PHP logic is getting long or you have substantial custom CSS and JavaScript, so the multi-file gives you the better organization of those files as what we've seen here, right? And if you want the IDE benefits for each file type, so your editor can provide better autocomplete, syntax highlighting, and linting when each file is in its proper type, as what you see here. So now if you try to type here the styling or the CSS, so it will just give you the autocomplete in a better way, rather than when you just mix it up here, right? So that was the one thing that you should consider when you are using the multi-file component. And then if you have the component specific styles and scripts, so multi-file makes it explicit. Here is my CSS, here is my JavaScript, here is my blade, no hunting through a single file. So it is just you to know that my component is search, then inside it you know that JavaScript is here, Livewire PHP class is right here, so that is good for organization. But also if you want testability, so multi-file can generate the test file with the test flag. So when you are creating the component like this way, so when we were creating the component like this way, so you were able to add the test flag here and it will add the test file here. So if you want the testability, so the multi-file component is a good idea, or it is a good choice for you. Then the use cases for class-based component. So if you are migrating from Livewire 2 or 3 to Livewire 4, your existing component work exactly as is, because there is no any conversion that you need to do. So all the classes will remain the same, or all the components will remain the same, because you're just going to use the class-based component. Then if you need inheritance or interfaces in your application, so anonymous classes cannot be extended. If you need class inheritance, trait, or interface, you must use the class-based component. So that is critical, because if you can see from here, so the component that have just anonymous class like this one, so you cannot be able to inherit it in any way that is possible. Okay, so another thing that you should consider in order for you to be able to choose the class-based component is when you need type hinting in other code. If you are type hinting the Livewire component in your services or controllers, or you need anything else like that, so you just need a named classes, which is a component, it's a class-based components. But also if your team prefers traditional structure, that is another thing that you should consider to use the class-based component. So some of the teams just like having PHP classes in app and then views in resources views, that's totally valid for them. So it's just for you to be able to choose based on those factors that I've mentioned, and the bottom line, there is no wrong choice. Livewire supports all three formats equally, and pick what fits your project. So now Livewire gives you another interesting feature, which is a way of converting between those formats. So we can be able to switch between the single file component and the multi-file component. So for example, now we have the search as a multi-file component. So let's say we want to convert this one into a single file component. So what you can do is just to run the following command, which is php @sun, then livewire, then on here say convert, and then give the name of the component, which is search, okay, which is this one, which is currently a multi-file component. So now let's try to click enter. You see what has just happened is that it goes here and it has just deleted the directory for search. It just combined those all three files into a single file component. So now if I close this one, if I open this one, now you see we have a single file component, which is this one, and all of the logics that we did, so the JavaScript, the style, all are found on the same file. So this is what I love about the Livewire version 4. So if you are still watching the video, comment on the comment section below what do you love until now on the Livewire 4 features that we've discussed up to now. Okay. So, and also you can be able to do the vice versa to this one. So if you want to convert it back to multi-file, what you should do is just to do the same thing. But also here you need to say that I want to convert this one to multi-file component. So when you click enter, now you see it is just returned back to the same thing that we had before. So we have the blade file, the CSS, the JavaScript here, and the PHP class here. So that is another best and simplest feature that has been added, but it is very critical to me because I believe every Laravel or Livewire developer has wanted to have something like this that can be able to convert those components automatically without the need to do that manually. So basically, when you do the conversion, it will just look at your component and automatically convert it to either way. So if you put here the flag for the file to go to single file component, so it will just check for that and it will do the same thing that you wanted. So basically, the conversion is all that we have seen, but also there is another thing that we see here, which is this icon of high voltage bolt emoji. So basically, the high voltage bolt image, this is for something which is called the identification or easy identification of files or Livewire components in your file system, because you can see from here, you can be able to see that this file can have multiple blade files that are not even related to Livewire. So for you to be able to be easy to identify that these components are for Livewire, so this image comes as a hint so that you can be able to detect the Livewire component. So when you have a big project with hundreds of blade files, that lightning bolt makes the Livewire component instantly recognizable, so your eyes just find them. It's the same reason Servlet Kit uses the plus page.servlet and Next.js uses the special file names. So visual recognition matters when you are navigating through a large code base. Okay, so it's optional and it's completely free for you to be able to change it. But if you don't like it, you can be able to disable it completely. So what you just need to do is to go on the configuration file and then just search for Emoji, and here you need to say false, and when you put it to false, so now Livewire will not put that in your files at all. So when you create a new component, it will not have that emoji that you will be able to see it from here. It is called a high voltage emoji. Okay, so I'll just leave it this way because Honestly, try it for a week and you might be surprised how much you like having that instant visual feedback. So I just love it. So basically, we have done all of these three things on the code, and we have seen on how you can be able to see it on the front-end page, so means on the browser. So basically, we are done with all that configurations and stuff about the component. So now it is time for you to go back to the documentation here, because I was just trying to show you the real features that you can be able to do it through the code. But here there is a couple of things that you can be able to see from here. So we have the way of creating the component. So this is the way of creating component. We have already covered that. We can also be able to create the page component. So basically, when we are discussing about the page component, this is useful for creating the full pages, and it is using the pages namespace to organize them in a dedicated directory, which is called the pages. So that is what we did before when we were creating the country component. So we have the pages directory here, and inside we have this component here. So that is just for organization, and it just gives you the mentality that all the files that will be belongs to this directory. This makes them that with their pages, and they are not reusable UI component. So down here they have discussed about the multi-file components, which we have already discussed about that. The way of converting between the formats, we have already discussed about that. When to use each format, we've already discussed about that. So you can just go through these details on your own. So when you want to render this component, for example, you want to render a certain component in another blade file. So instead of just creating a full page component like this one, so for example, when you go back to the welcome page like this one, and you want to render the certain component here. So what you can do, let me just go back. Let me zoom back here. So here, for example, you want to render the component on this page. So what you can do, so you just need to go to the welcome.blade.php, and here, instead of showing this body that you have right now, what you can do, we can just remove this code, and what you can do, you can just say Livewire then we have the different kind of component that we have up to now. So for example, if I want to show the user profile, so you can just do this way, okay? And when you do this way, basically it will just do the same thing. So it will just render that component on your welcome page. So now if I go back into refresh, you see, so now it is blank because on your profile page here, we don't have anything that we put here. So for example, if I just render a certain message here, like heading 1, hello class based servers, and then if I refresh, you see, so the text was appearing here, but it is not showing correctly because there is styles here that makes the text not to look correctly. So I can just remove it from here, and if I go back and refresh, now you should be able to see that text here. So that's a way of rendering the component in another blade files. Okay, then there is a way of passing props or the prop to your component. For example, on that component, if we want to show the title. So what you can do is just to pass something like this one. So just go to the component where you called it and pass something like this. And if you go to that component which is user profile, so means here on the class, you can be able to accept that as a parameter on your public function mount. So even the mount is one of the lifecycle hook of the Livewire component. So here you can be able to accept that title as a parameter. So just call it title, and then here you can be able to pass the title. For example, you can create here a public string title, which should be a variable or title, and then you can just make it to be empty string, but here you can just say this, then title, now can be assigned to the title that is here. Okay, so means this value will be assigned to here, and when it will be assigned, now it will be available here. So instead of showing this one, so now you can be able to say, for example, here is the heading 1, and here we can be able to show the title. But here, instead of being heading 1, now we can be able to say this should be heading 2. And now if I go back here and refresh, you see now the initial title is here and the text is here. So that's a way of passing those props like this one. But if it is a dynamic variable, just remember to add this prefix of a $sign so that it can be able to understand that this is a dynamic, but also add the full colon attribute here so that it can be able to know that this is dynamic and this one is static. Okay, and here they shown you how to pass it through the mount function that I've already shown you, and then also you can be able to pass the route parameters as props like this way. Okay, so here we are going to see this one in action when we start to build the real application on the next video. So for now, this is the way of creating the page component that you have already seen for the counter, because the counter is a full page component. So when you read the counter, so this one is a full page component because the counter, we just assigned the route here, we registered the route, and each route you can see it is prefixed by these pages, means this is a full page component like this one. Okay, so to access the data in the views, so you can just pass the data like this one. So when you just create the public property like this one, so in a blade file it becomes accessible directory. And for example, if you want to make sure that that is true, if you just create a component like the one that we did here on the profile, for example on user profile, here this title, you see, so by default you can just assign a certain value and that value will be accessible on the blade file. So that's what is trying to be explained here. Okay, and we have the protected properties that will be discuss them when we start to discuss about the properties, but for now just know that we have the protected properties, we have the computed properties like this one, but for now I'll just not discuss them much here. So let's discuss about how you can organize the components. So while Livewire automatically discover components in the default resource, views, and components directory, you can customize where the Livewire hooks looks for component and organize them using namespaces. So the component namespaces allow you to organize the components into dedicated directories with a clean reference syntax. So by default, the pages points to this directory, and the layout points to this directory. So you can define additional namespaces in your config livewire.php file, which is this one, and then you can say the component namespaces. So you can add the namespace like for admin will be found inside the views, then admin directory. So that's where the application will be looking for those component that you have already dedicated that directory or a namespace. The widget, the same thing. So then you use them when you're creating and rendering routing. Okay. So when you just create a new component, you just say php @sun make, then admin, then you have a way like this one. So for example, let's try this one for admin. Let's add it on the config file. So let me close all of these files. So let's go to Livewire and namespaces here. Let's add the admin namespace, which is this one. All right. And now if we try to create a new component for admin, so we just need to clear the terminal, then create a component php @sun livewire. Then we need to say admin, then double full colon, and then you need to say the name of the component that you are creating. So for example, we want to say dashboard. You see, so now it has been created inside the views, admin, then the name of the component. So now let's go to the directory here and let's see what we have. So inside the views, we have a new directory called the admin, and inside the admin, you can see we have a single file component for admin. So this will be for the dashboard of your admin. So that's how easy you can just use the namespaces to classify or to identify where Livewire should look for your files. Okay. Then on routing, you just need to have this prefix here, the same way to when you render this in another blade component. So an additional component location that you can configure. For example, you can just say instead of just admin, you can add beyond that admin. So you can say this should be admin, then inside it should have components. So now Livewire will automatically discover all the components inside these directories. So if you want to programmatically register those components, so this is the way that you should use. So you can register the component directory using this way, namespace using this way, and that's easiest way that you can do. Also, you can be able to register the class-based component in this way. Okay, so this discuss about how you can be able to create the class-based component that we have already seen on how you can do. Just add the flag of class here. Alright, so if you want to configure the default component type to be class, multi-file or single file, this is where you should be able to configure. So just go to the make command in your Livewire configuration file, which is this one, and then just search for make command, and then here you can see the type currently it is on the single file component. So if you change it to multi-file or class, so means that will be the default way of creating the components. Here there is a way of customizing the component stubs. When we are discussing about the component stubs, these are the files that give you the structure or how the components are being generated. So I'm going to show you one thing and then we are going to close about this today's video. So let me just clear it, then paste the command, then run it. So you see the tabs stubs have been published. So now if I go back to the application, on the root directory, you see we have the stubs, and here are the stubs that we have. So for example, for stubs for creating the component, so you can see this is the stub for creating the component, and this is a class D base D component. Also, we have the view, which is this one. So here you can see where it shows the code. Here there is a form if you created the form. So this is how the form will look like. If you are creating the inline component, this is the way it should look like. The test will look like this one. The attribute will look like this one. So now, for example, let me change one thing here. For example, on a class-based component, I want it to have the mount function by default. So means if now I create a class-based component at any point, it should add this function automatically, because at first, if you remember, we created the user profile and then we added this manually. So now I want to show you that this can be done by just updating the stubs. So let me just do that, and class based, which is this one. Now let's create another one which can be, let's say, login. Okay, then enter. Okay, now if we go to the login component, open it, and you see now we have the mount function added automatically. So that's a good thing about Livewire configurations that we've already done. So that's what it is being offered in this component or in this section. So that's all about these things that we've already seen. And here there is a way of troubleshooting things. For example, the component is not found, the component shows blank or doesn't render, the class name conflict, and other things. And that's way that you can troubleshoot. After that, you can be able to see also the properties, actions, pages, nesting, and everything that we need. So, but mostly important, pick one format per feature or module and stay consistent. Don't randomly mix them, so your future will thank you at any point in the future. Okay, so let's recap on what we have covered in this video. So one of the things that we have covered is the 3 component formats: the single file component, multi-file component, and class-based component. Also, we have covered on when to use each of these formats, how to convert between them with the Livewire convert command, how you can change or disable the high voltage emoji which we were using for identification of your component easily. Then we have discussed on how you can do the configurations option on different scenarios. So in the next video, we are setting up the actual project which we will be building throughout this series. A task management application with authentication, database, models, migrations, Tailwind CSS, and it's going to be really practical. So the code for this video is on GitHub. The link is on the description. If you have a question about the component formats or wanted to share which one you prefer, drop a comment. I read every single one and I'll just reply if I can. Then if you are new to the channel, subscribe so that you don't miss the video number 3. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See you.